Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. We have a special edition of the Long Hill Report. Greg Downie, last year graduate of high school, a very bright young man who we've had on before, who is interested in the world. And I'm Richard Morco, and this is the Long Hill Report. All right, Greg, we discussed that you would be talking about the situation. Greg is family from Eastern Europe, mother's Romanian. Were you born in Romania?
Yeah.
And might as well be an American because no accent, but he does know a lot about the situation in Eastern Europe. So without further ado, Romania had an election that had some questions about it, didn't it?
Yeah, for sure. I was just doing a little bit of research because when you told me that the topic was going to be the Eastern European, I kind of panicked a little bit because I didn't know that much going from there, so I had to do a little bit of research. And like I talked about it before, my mom is really good, I would say, was really good friends with Călin Georgescu's wife. So she still...
Tell the audience who that is.
So Călin Georgescu was he was running for president in Romania, and he did not get elected for various reasons. They called it off right in about the middle of the election. They completely called it off. They called it off because of the Romanian political party, I would say, was too conservative, was too right-wing, as they would say, right-wing extremist.
Which was Mr.
Călin Georgescu, yeah.
The party, their party.
Yep.
And it was the heretofore Romanian elite that stopped the election.
Yes. So, I mean, it was on schedule. It was going well. He was winning the election, and they called it off. They were saying it was unconstitutional because of his involvement in promoting himself on TikTok, which doesn't really make any sense if you think about it, right? He was promoting his party on different social media platforms, and they called it unconstitutional because they were saying that he was, using false information to, expand his movement, I would say. And they called it off, and he immediately, there was tons of, marches in Romania of the people who loved Călin Georgescu, who marched out into the city saying that this is not right, you guys are lying, this is deceitful, there's no way that you can't call off an election. The reasons for calling off the election were made up pretty much. So they also obviously threw in the Russian collusion like they always do, there was Russian collusion. So Romania was up in arms. There's obviously, a small part of people in Romania that were happy that he wasn't going to get elected, but I would say the majority. Like there was a complete majority of people that loved him because he was Christian. He was for the rights of the people. He was fighting to bring back Romania back from the neoliberal state that is currently in and will continue because the president next up, I think it's Dan Nicușor, something like that. That's the president who was elected. He's completely liberal, complete leftist, and there's going to be some problems that might occur from that. As of right now, though, they're trying to press charges on him.
Against Georgescu.
They're trying to put him in prison. His trial date is 2026. They're thinking, and they're trying to get him by saying that he was starting a coup in Romania. They're trying to say that he was starting a coup in Romania
by using TikTok.
Yeah, by using TikTok, by riling up, the Romanian citizens. They're trying to get him to say that he was, trying to start a coup in that remark.
How much of the EU and actually the U.S. NGOs are involved in Romania?
That's one of those things where Romania is obviously part of the European Union. It's been a part for a decent amount of time. It hasn't been a part of the European Union for as long as like Germany or like France has been. So it's some people will say it's relatively new to the whole organization. But there's not that much involvement from the surface. I would say there's probably a good amount like where we can't see it, like up where we can't see anything. But on the surface, there's not too much involvement, I would say. But that's really kind of all I know really about the whole situation going down there. It's obviously right on the border of Ukraine. There's a lot still going on there. So Romania is going to have some, hopefully not, but it might go through some tough times because of what happened. And most of the Romanians are upset. They're still upset, but there's nothing they can do. They had marches. They went on huge different parades to try to bring him back, but there was no way of being able to have him become president again or win the election, I would say.
What seems awfully problematic about this is, in people, you're very young, but I remember Ceausescu telling people, "Oh, go away,"
Yeah.
and then having to get in the helicopter himself,
Yeah.
and then being executed.
Yeah.
All in what seemed like a very short time, whereas he had held such secure power prior to that.
Yeah.
And so you think this is a huge downfall of authoritarian government, and then years of different political whatever. I didn't pay that much attention to Romania. You hear some news, and now, boom, back to authoritarianism. How authoritarian compared to Ceausescu? Do they compare it to Ceausescu?
Not really, because Ceausescu was it was a funny situation because he was obviously a dictator. He was in the Communist Party, but he did a lot of things for Romania that a lot of people who are obviously more right-wing, conservative people respected. He was against centralized banking, which is it's a big thing. A lot of presidents, a lot of people who've been against centralized banking have paid the price for speaking against it. He was against centralized banking. Now, Romania, before he became the dictator, was in huge debt. They were in huge debt. And one of the things that he said he was going to do was to make the Romanian economy, to turn the Romanian economy back around, and he was going to do so with paying off all the debt. Now, a lot of the ways that he did it were, controversial. He would have a set time for when the light would turn off in the whole, in Romania. They would have, my mom used to tell me around 6 o'clock, they would turn off the lights. The electricity would be, obviously in certain hospitals they would keep it on, but in, residential apartments, they would completely turn off the electricity. And so my mom used to have to study with candles, and they would have to have different ways of lighting up the house. He would do it, he would turn off the electricity. There would be a huge amount of different things that he would kind of take away in terms of in terms of saying that there's budget cuts, limited amount of water. Food was also, you would have to wait in lines for hours to get a loaf of bread. There was people in Romania were suffering, and there's you have people who say that at the end of the day the end justifies the means, and it was not. There was hard times in Romania, and he ended up ending the all the money that Romania owed to the European Union, all the money that Romania owed to the banks, to all of the other nations that they borrowed money for, and he was able to get rid of everything. All of the debt that Romania owed was gone by the end of his dictatorship, I'd say. So there's a lot of Romanians who respected him for that. They said, listen, he might have not done it in the best way possible. There are people who, died because of it. But at the end of the day, he did, try his best to reverse what Romania got stuck with. So I don't know a lot about Ceausescu. I know that obviously he was part of the Communist Party. It was also at a time where the Communist Party was falling, so they didn't have the extremist ideas that they did back in the 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s. So obviously he still had churches open. Everything like that was still going on. It was more modernized. So it was at the end of the day, he was still a dictator. He was still a communist, but he did a lot of good things, I would say, for the Romanian people, and a lot of people respected him. A lot of people, it's kind of up in the air with Ceausescu. It's like one of those funny kind of.
How do the people that your mom knows feel about the current clique who have taken over things?
Yeah, it's
Do
the
they
same.
feel worse about him?
It's the same about Călin Georgescu.
No, they feel worse about the elite who kept Georgescu from being.
Yeah,
than they did about. Then the people feel that way about them, or do they feel about Ceausescu? They feel he was worse than the current group.
I
mean,
think
keep in
in
mind,
my person.
there's an age.
Yeah. I didn't live through the times of Ceausescu. I didn't live through the times of Romania. My mom did, and she's told me many stories of what she had to do to be able to, on an everyday, day-to-day basis. And there was a certain level of, I would say, religious conservatism. There was more, I would say, people were still to the point where, they were more religious, more conservative, and there was, this lack of all of the craziness that's going on nowadays. So I would say, in my personal opinion, I don't know, I haven't really talked to the people that, my relatives in Romania about this topic, but in my personal opinion, I think what's happening now is worse than what happened, in the 70s with Ceausescu, 70s, 80s, for multiple reasons, because we can see the same thing happening in Romania is happening here in the U.S. It's happening to a level where it's harder to be able to accomplish because Romania fell. Romania was fallen. So there's no, conquering it again. The U.S. has never fallen, right? It's bound to eventually, but it hasn't fallen. Same thing with other countries who were taken over by, communist regimes, by fascist ideologies. There was tons of countries who don't really have kind of the same end game as if the U.S. fell, right? So, for instance, China is a powerhouse, right? But their citizens, China is. You go to China, you can't come back. It's people in China are slaves.
You think so?
Yeah.
Well, we'll get into that later. China, where the Chinese people stand, I think, is far more discussion for something else. But I'm not sure that it's fair to call them slaves.
Well, they're not slaves to the point where they don't make a wage. They don't.
Are you saying
Somebody
they
owns them.
can't say something?
I'm saying economically, if you look at a Chinese household, right, and Beijing is one of those parts of China where there's more freedom than there used to be. So living in Beijing is not too bad as it used to be, right?
Well,
you had
but how do you know about these other places?
Because you can look around. There's
You can't look around because we're here. We only get the news that's reported us.
Yeah.
Which is why
Well, that's why we have to do a deep dive.
You're here to talk about Romania.
Yeah.
You're not here to talk about China.
No, absolutely not. But you have to compare. You have to compare certain situations to other countries. There was forced abortions in China in the early 2000s, 90s, 80s. That is a form of slavery.
And they're paying for it because their birth rate is way down. Their population is declining.
It is.
But that was in the 90s. That was before the 90s.
No, completely understand. China as of right now is better than it used to be.
But you need to make a special study. That's your next assignment. To know everything about China.
Sure.
Anyway, we're hard in this place.
Yeah.
The other Eastern Europe countries, we want to know what do you think about what's going in Georgia? And this is not the one with Atlanta and Savannah. This is...
Yeah, the country of Georgia.
Yeah.
I don't know much about that, to be honest. I haven't really done any research on that. But, what's happening in the U.S. shadows everything else that's happening in Europe. The way that society is in Europe is almost mimicking the U.S. So it kind of goes hand in hand. The same people that I would say run society here in the U.S., run society there in Europe. The same, civilization is kind of like the same ideologically speaking. Social media is, also a powerhouse in Europe. Now, if you compare the U.S. to Europe, to North Korea, places in the Middle East, they're completely different. So I can't really speak about anything about what's happening in Georgia because I don't really know that much that's going on about that. But I did want to bring something up, and obviously I am going to college, and when
are you starting?
I already started.
Where?
Yeah, Quinseg.
Okay, good.
So obviously, a lot of people, a lot of conservatives know that in the college atmosphere, there's a lot of brainwashing. I would have to say that's going on of the students, and I didn't. I talked to a lot of people like, hey, watch out. You're gonna come to college. You're gonna come back. You're gonna come back with a lot of strange ideas. I don't want to say anything here, but you're gonna come back with a lot of strange ideas. And I was like, yeah, whatever. Can't be that bad, right? So my English class, it's an online class. I don't go there in person. All my other classes are in person. This one's online. It took me a while to fire up the computer program that they have us learning on. I finally was able to get it going, and I read the first article that was an assignment to annotate the article, right? Simple enough. The title of the article was How Standard English is Racist, right? I want, everybody can look this up. Look up John McWhorter. He's a writer. He writes articles.
I've heard of him.
Yeah. Now, the whole article's purpose was to say how standard English and the black English should be taught in schools. So now, I'm not even gonna get on that topic first, but one of the first things that he says in the article is how teaching someone who is black standard English is racist. So I'm reading this thing and I'm like, there's no way there's people who actually believe this. There's no way that someone someone who has a brain cell can read this and say, you know what? Yeah, yeah, yeah. Let's just go ahead and that makes sense, right? That makes sense. So I'm reading this, and one of the first things I see is that he refers, he says the term blackness, and he wasn't saying it sarcastically. He was saying it as a statement, blackness. Mm-hmm. Now he was saying that because of blackness, the way that people speak, there's certain, obviously, culturally in the U.S., black people might speak differently than white people, and he was saying that because of that, trying to teach those people who speak like that standard English is racist. Now, I annotated that and I said, what do you mean by blackness? Do you mean like the color of someone's skin? Because you can take someone from Africa, right? Straight from Africa, and they don't talk like, some black people that do here. I know plenty of black people who don't speak like that. And at this point, it's not a black thing, it's a cultural thing. There's plenty of white people that I know who speak like that. It's not a black thing. So the fact that he was saying blackness just makes completely illogical sense, right? So I was completely astounded when I was reading that, and I continued. And I would pull up the article now, but I'm not going to sit here and take like 5 minutes to find the article. But look up John McWhorter article on standard English, and you will find the article, and you can read it. It's not long. It took me about 15 minutes to read it. And throughout the whole thing, he was saying how at the root it's racist to be able to teach standard English to kids who are of a different ethnicity, right? So that's English, that's a language. That's like me who I speak Romanian. I'm bilingual. I can speak Romanian and English, right? That's like me going to France, right? And I don't know how to speak French. That's like me going to France and saying it's racist for you. It's racist for you guys are being racist because you guys should be teaching me your language in English, So it just doesn't make any sense to me personally that someone can say that. And I don't know what you think about that, but it's some crazy stuff that's going on. And I personally couldn't believe it. Like I was reading this thing, I'm like, is this a joke? Like is this a joke? I don't know. I don't know what to think anymore. And there's people who genuinely believe that. That's what is scary. That's what's really, really scary.
John McWhorter is well known.
Yeah.
He's been known. I would say that English is, I don't know if you've ever heard the term lingua franca.
No, I've never heard that.
Means the common language. The common
Everybody
language.
knows English. You go to Romania, half the people in Romania know how to speak English.
It may be that the milieu, where people live, English isn't well spoken.
Yeah.
But so what?
Exactly. It's still English.
Yeah.
It's like one of those things where it's like common sense.
You may have to make more effort.
Yeah.
To speak standard English.
Yeah.
But you should make that effort.
Yeah, exactly.
Now, you know where I teach. I am always correcting white students and but white students on ridiculous things.
It's not a color
things
thing.
that they will say, and I hate this, and I probably can't get it to be made a hanging offense, but when people say something to me like I hate this word, but they will say, I was like very mad. I say to them, were you very mad or were you like very mad? Please explain. Mm. And I'd like to have our fellow pale Americans stop doing that, but I'd like to have our fellow Americans of all nationalities to stop doing
Yeah.
it, and they could, and that's important. And and so saying it's hard for you, 90% of white America ain't speaking English.
Mm.
Oh, I shouldn't have said ain't. Anyway,
Yeah, and
but yeah,
it's that's the thing with a lot of people, like for instance John McWhorter and people like him, they like to throw race into everything. Like it's not
I have
about
never before seen Mr. McWhorter doing that, so that surprises me. I've been aware of him for a while.
yeah, and people like him too. They like to instigate these racial like problems that are just
See,
not there.
now wait a minute. These racial like problems, Greg, don't disappoint me so. These racial problems, not these racial like problems. Come on, Greg, I'm gonna funk you right here.
Yeah. So that goes to show you that. I mean, I know it firsthand that how certain parts of college is just.
So you're saying
I
that
don't.
was the professor
Yeah.
being politically correct?
Well, I would say yes. At that point, it's not even being politically correct anymore. That's just plain, like, being an idiot. Like, how are you going
Don't
to?
say like on me. You just
How are
said
you
it.
going to, give students an article to read when you're an English teacher, right? You can see the hypocrisy here. You're an English teacher, and you're giving your students an article to read about how standard English is racist. You can see the problem there, right?
Now, will your class? Now it may not be, because will your class be discussing that?
Well, it's all online.
Or was that just an exercise that you won't be discussing? It was just so that you could annotate.
It was in online classes. You don't really discuss. They just give you assignments. They give you readings to do, and they make you do your work. So no, we're not going to be discussing that.
So all you're doing is annotating.
All we're doing is annotating, and then just going from there. I did my annotating. I annotated it, all the parts where I was confused, which was the whole thing. I was confused. So it was just it was one of those eye-opening moments where you hear people saying, "Oh, how crazy college is," and then you actually see it firsthand. So it was one of those eye-opening moments where it was like, wow. It's like, wow, that's bad. Mm-hmm. That's bad. Yeah. I mean, I can go ahead and start talking a little bit about the small movement that I've started. I have a YouTube channel and an Instagram account, so you guys can go and subscribe and follow the Instagram. It's called The Truth USA. I'm going to be doing talks like this pretty often. I'm also going to be doing debates. First one today is a Thursday. First one is going to be Monday against Richard Belba. He, I would say, is on the left side of the spectrum. He's also an author, so he's a very intelligent man. He's also 57, so it's going to be definitely a tough debate firsthand. But I'm not worried about it. So we're gonna go ahead and see that Monday. And one of the first topics that we're going to be debating is abortion. Now, we see abortion being a very modern problem. I would say that, on the contrary, it's not a modern problem. We had people, very early cultures, who sacrificed their children. And it was obviously in a different way. They sacrificed their children in a manner of, sacrificing them to the gods to have better crops. Now we're doing it in a way where it's like, okay, I don't want to have a child. I can't take care of it, so I'm going to go ahead and kill it. It's a different essence, but at the end of the day, it's still the same thing. So we're, sacrificing the children for convenience. You can always put up children up for adoption if you can't take care of it. You can always, I think, and if you ask the child, do you rather, live and maybe, start off in an orphanage or die? I think they would choose to live every single time. That's just not fair to be able to take away that innate human right.
Okay, we are basically coming to the end. Mike will be doing his debate next week, and Mike is a very intelligent young man. He was one of the more thoughtful students. And another thing I can say about him is he's not shy, unless he wants to disagree about that.
No, I'm definitely not shy.
All right, this has been Richard Morco with Greg Downie. Did I call you Mike?
Yeah.
We're changing his name. We'll be going to court next week.
Yep.
Richard Morco, actually Greg Morco, no, Richard Morco and Greg Downie, Long Hill Report, and we'll hope you'll visit him again. And if you would like to hit subscribe and like the show, we'd be grateful. Thank you.